Thank you for tuning in and watching. This video is sponsored, and this topic comes up a lot. And I find myself talking to different people that I have sessions with about this particular subject. This video is on how to be more authentic within yourself and within your relationships with others. Now, this is something that takes time. I don't really promote anything that deals with any overnight results, because I've come to realize that life just doesn't work like that. Things take time, and you have to have patience. And living in a world and society that programs you to behave and to operate in ways that are not in alignment with your core and how you're genetically designed, we all are programmed in some type of way to operate inauthentically and to play out other people's programs and characteristics, and it just goes on and on. So what I like to do when I work with different people is, first of all, have a consultation and just see where they're at, see what their current circumstances are and what their lifestyle is like, so that I can look at things from a more realistic perspective and see if they will really be able to apply the information. Because I've seen that you have certain people that have lifestyles and are entangled in situations that make it very difficult for them to get more in alignment with their authenticity. And others have lifestyles to where they can move right into it. They can easily just drop certain things or let go of certain situations or people, and they can move right into it. So everyone is different, and there are situations to where I could see, matter of fact, there was some type of skit. I can't remember where it was at, but it I think it was titled "When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong." That's all I remember. I can't remember like really anything other than there were just different skits where a character was expressing themselves based on how they really felt in their truth, but then they ended up getting backlash. So that comes to mind when I think about a lot of people's circumstances and situations that make it difficult for them to keep it real or to operate the way that they want to and stand in their truth, speak their truth, and be themselves. And I try to be as realistic as possible when working with people, and even when it comes to giving advice and doing these videos, I try to acknowledge many different walks of life and many different perspectives, so that it's not just a one-sided, one-track, everybody needs to do this, because I can really see how not everything is for everybody. So if you resonate with the information that I share in this video or any other video, then good, and if you don't, then I don't recommend that you follow any of these tips or listen to anything that I'm saying, because if it doesn't resonate, then there's a higher intelligence within you that knows that either this information is not for you, or maybe this is the wrong time. And I do understand, and I have seen where people have tried to apply information too early and it really created more problems for them. So some people need to stay inauthentic to make things a little bit easier for them and to avoid losing situations that are keeping them stable. And in this world that we live in, that's just a realistic view. So with that said, for the people that feel that they want to be more authentic, they are at a place to where they want to break away from characteristics and behaviors and lifestyles that don't align with them and are causing them more resistance and conflict within themselves and with the people around them. I'm going to share some of the tips that I give people that I do human design sessions with. The first thing is acknowledge and accept that you are a genetic formula. And with that genetic formula, you have specific genetic needs that are selfish. And selfish has such a negative energy behind it collectively. And when you hear that word, it can trigger you to think that it's something bad. But when you really look at the primal nature of each individual, and you can start with looking at babies, newborn babies. Newborn babies are the most selfish. They're the most selfish human beings on the planet because they have to be. If they weren't selfish, they wouldn't survive. So that's how we're starting. All of us start right there as newborn babies who are extremely selfish. And we build on that because it's in our nature, it's in our genetic formula. Each genetic formula, each individual has selfish genetic needs that are always demanding to be fulfilled. Always. And it's always going to be, as long as your body is alive, you're always going to feel pressure to fulfill those selfish genetic needs. So with human design, that's another thing I love about human design because it lays it out. It's right there in your face. It shows you these are your selfish genetic needs that are looking to be fulfilled. So I'll start with myself. I'm a manifesting generator. Anybody who's a generator, anybody who's a manifesting generator, your signature or the goal that you have genetically to experience all the time is satisfaction. So we can start with that. I'm a manifesting generator who is looking to be satisfied in anything that I put my energy into. That is one of my primary selfish genetic needs. I want to be satisfied. If I give you my energy, I would like satisfaction in return. And that can be in many different things. I like many different things. But that's one way to look at identifying your genetic selfish needs. We can look at profiles. So I'm a 1-3 profile, which means that I'm pressured to find a solid foundation. 1-3s are naturally teacher profiles. We're naturally foundational people. We want to get to the bottom of things. We want to know all of the data. We want to know the information that deals with being solid. And then on the other hand, we're also scientists. So we're always experimenting. We're always exploring. We're always trying one thing out, getting bored with it, and moving on to something else. So in looking at my profile, this is the costume that I wear for this life. I'm a 1-3. And that is the theme of being a 1-3. So there is a need to be able to move freely. So I want satisfaction in anything that I put my energy into. And I naturally do not resonate with staying in any one thing for a long period of time. It's almost impossible. All of the many times I try to stick with something, it never seems to work. So there needs to be a freedom there. So whatever I do, it needs to be something that does not require me to deal with it for a long period of time. Because if I try to deal with something for too long that doesn't allow me to take breaks in between, then I'm not going to be satisfied. I'm going to be frustrated. And being a manifesting generator, not only do you experience frustration as a thing, but you also experience anger. And these aren't decisions that you make when it comes to experiencing these emotions. These are the chemistries that are produced within the body when the body is not fulfilled. When the body is not experiencing what it's genetically designed to experience. So those are just two examples of my selfish genetic needs. And these are pressures that I always feel. I've always felt them. Even though the majority of my life I didn't understand what I was feeling. But my whole life I felt these same genetic needs always pressuring me. The needs of being a 1-3 and the needs of being a manifesting generator. And I'm going to just assume that those needs are never going to go away as long as my body is alive. So I have genetic needs that need to be fulfilled in this life, in everything that I do. And of course, everyone is different. And it's important for you to be aware of these needs and get comfortable with expressing them to yourself first. Don't be so quick to tell the next person what you need, because a part of deprogramming and deconditioning is becoming familiar with you, acknowledging and recognizing yourself and what is important for you to thrive and for you to feel good within yourself before you try to share your energy and connect with other people. Now, of course, many people are already entangled with other individuals, and that can make it more difficult to start expressing these type of truths about yourself. But that's okay. If you resonate with it, then things will, in some type of way, align themselves for you to start applying this information and applying these tips to your life. So it's almost like when people have pep talks with themselves. You know, some people might stand in the mirror and just talk to themselves and pump themselves up and say things that make them feel encouraged and help them to get ready to go out and accomplish something. You might have an interview coming up, or you might have a test that you need to take, or you might be going on a date. It could be anything, and you just stand in the mirror and, like, you know, you pump yourself up, you get yourself ready, you talk to yourself, you give yourself that reinforcement. And acknowledging your genetic formula and your selfish genetic needs should become a part of that pep talk, so that when you step out and life happens, people come into your life or those that are already in your life engage with you in certain ways, you can start to tune in on a different level to what is actually resonating with you being authentic. And one of the things that I recognize in my life, and I've also seen this play out in many other people's lives, is that majority of us have created patterns within our relationships that are based on us being unaware of ourselves. So I can look back at connections that I made years ago where I wasn't aware of my genetic needs. I wasn't aware of my genetic formula, any of that. And due to this lack of awareness, I allowed patterns to be established. I allowed certain behaviors to play out. I allowed people to engage with me in certain types of ways that were never really comfortable, because in me not knowing what my genetic needs were, I didn't know how to set boundaries. I didn't know how to acknowledge things that were not in alignment with me in the very beginning and put a stop to them early. So a lot of our relationships are built on these inauthentic patterns and behaviors and personalities that we allow to play out just simply because we don't have self-awareness. So, for instance, you may have connected with someone years ago due to being in an environment that was never really for you. And you ended up in that environment because someone asked you to go and you didn't know how to say no. And then you ended up meeting someone there and you all connected and became friends. And that person, because they met you in this environment that you wouldn't have been in if you were self-aware, now their first impression of you and the expectations they have of you is to continue to engage in activities that deal with being in this environment. And a lot of people have long-term relationships, long-term friendships that are based off of situations like this. I've heard so many different types of situations that started off based on not being self-aware and not knowing how to say no, not knowing how to set boundaries, not knowing how to identify and acknowledge people and situations that were not going to be beneficial for them. And after some time, of course, conflicts arise, there's friction, there's just a lot of things that happen that are uncomfortable, and that's because the foundation of these relationships were based on not being authentic. And a lot of people get to a place to where they're ready to disconnect from everything. They're ready to let people go. They're ready. The pressure has built up so much to where they just want to start over. And it's like a demolition that's taking place, because when we see buildings that have to go through getting torn down, it could be because the foundation is messed up, or the structure itself is just corroded because it's just old. It's old and worn out, and there's nothing left to do with that building. So it gets completely torn down and something new is built. And that's where a lot of people get to in their lives when they start moving into becoming more self-aware and self-empowered, which will naturally move you into being more authentic with yourself and with other people. So when you get comfortable with acknowledging to yourself, hey, I have selfish genetic needs. I'm a genetic formula and I have a life to live. There are things that are built in me to have. There are things that are built into me to do. There are certain people that I'm designed to connect with. Many different things. And when you start acknowledging that and you feel good about it and you don't feel wrong or feel guilty for wanting to be selfish, then it's like another level opens up for you to move even further into being authentic. And that's when you start expressing that to the people in your reality. So I share with people something that we all experience, which is when your phone or your computer goes through these updates, which from what I've noticed, it happens quite often. And when we look at the relationships that we have, rarely do any of us update our relationships. And I feel like that's something to really think about, because our phones are constantly updating, our computers are constantly updating, and phones and computers are made based off humans. So how can our devices understand to go through these updates, but us as human beings, we don't do that in our personal lives and with our relationships? I know I'm changing every moment, but I can look at last week, I can look at a month ago, I can look at 3 months ago, I can look at a year ago, 10 years ago, and see so many different versions of myself. And I can also recognize that majority of people in my life did not get the update. They did not get any of the updates that I went through personally. And a lot of you all may have experienced reconnecting with someone who you haven't seen in a really long time. And the conversation they have with you is based on their last memory of you, or how they remember you to be in that period of time to where you were around them. And for you, it feels weird because you're like, oh wow, they're going way back. And when that's happened to me, it's been a lot of things that I completely forgot about. Things that I forgot that I did, things that, I mean, just, they were just out of sight, out of mind. And reconnecting with people from the past, it triggers those memories, and you're like, wow, so much has happened from that point up till now. And you may feel this resistance, because here's this person that remembers you from way back then, but you know that you've gone through all of these updates, and you know how much time it would take to update them on everything that got you from where they remember you to be and where you are now. And then you may realize that you might just want to get out the conversation because it's too much. And you know, if you try to tell them who you are today, they might glitch out, because it's just like if you had a computer when Windows 98 was the newest software. You had this Windows 98 computer 10 plus years ago, however long ago it was, and you shut it down and just didn't turn it back on. And then here it is, 2019, and then you're turning the computer back on for the first time in 10, 15 years. and the computer is like waking up and asking, where am I? What year is this? Like how we see in those movies to where somebody travels in time and, you know, they land and they're like, what year is this? Because the environment is different, the scenery, the people are dressed differently. It's kind of like that. It's like this computer is waking up in a whole new era, and it's the software that it's built with can't connect to any of the new technology. It can't connect to the Wi-Fi. It can't connect to the 4 or 5G networks now. It just doesn't connect. And not only is that how the situation seems to be when we connect with people from our past who have these old memories of us, and then they can't update with us, like they can't connect to the updated version of us. A lot of our ongoing relationships operate in that same way. A lot of people, even though they may see you changing, it's not computing. It's not. A lot of people are refusing to accept these constant updates and newer versions of you that are coming forward as time goes on. And people treat you like that. And if you're not actively updating them and saying, hey, I know we used to do this, or, you know, this is something that we both enjoyed doing, or I know you're used to me eating at this restaurant with you, but you know, I'm no longer interested in those things. Many of us don't do that. We don't have those conversations. And a lot of times it's because we're scared. We don't know how to even approach the conversation. We don't know how to tell people that we love and care about that we're not interested in certain things anymore. It's a lot of different reasons that we don't express the updated versions of ourselves, and we don't express our authenticity with others. But what we see happen all the time is this buildup of pressure and conflict between people, because the changes are still happening, the updates are still happening, but the communication is not happening. The conversations that need to be had are not happening. So something that was easy to do with your friends or your partner, something that was just common and consistent to do, someone or both people have changed. The frequencies have changed. Both people feel it, but the communication is not happening. So you're feeling the clashing, you're feeling this pressure, you're getting irritated with each other. You're you know, all of this uncomfortable energy is building up because the communication is not happening. And eventually, a lot of situations end up having some type of argument, a fight, something that creates this huge blow up and fallout, and the energy, the connection separates.